Okay, I think this looks good. Let's just make sure Medina can hear it. I told them they can join online, but so will the audio from the computer works?
Well,
so it's connected with HDMI. So
okay.
No, it will work from here.
Okay.
Let's play YouTube video and see.
Yeah. And I have to run there. Here.
What did you copy pictures for me? What the heck? You highlighted it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, well, you highlighted my source.
I needed an online store for my jewelry design business, so Shop Here, powered by Google, built me one for free.
Wait, I think there is an option. Question 420.
Yes, that's what you want.
Yep. So from this end it is, from that end.
And it sees it. So you see that. Can you just keep playing whatever?
Yeah, it is playing.
Oh, it's fine. Okay. And that is.
Oh. Why? What's up?
Okay, keep her on the call. Tell me, Medina, if it is working. So
He's not even
is this
on Zoom.
Yeah. She want to enter? Oh yeah, sorry, Medina.
To test our Zoom. She's like staying on the call. She's like, get me in the Zoom. There she is.
So if anyone wants to test the mic.
Yep, so let me do it, Medina. So, okay, is the mic working, right? Okay. Medina, can you hear us?
Yep, I can hear you.
How clear is it?
It's very clear, but it also picks up the background noise a lot.
Background noise like someone's voice?
Yeah, like Ajit Safwan talking.
Oh, what did you say?
Okay, but you can hear us here, right? So I think that should be good.
Yeah, I can hear. The camera is tilted a little bit.
I mean, check it. So I think we're good. We are good, Nikita. You can be back.
Nikita?
Medina. Keep it up. Yeah, don't highlight it. It happens.
Uh-huh.
I think it's fine if it's not working.
What's my role as a food guy?
Oh, so the Medina have placed order for the drinks. When they come, take them from the person, put them over here, open it, and then we'll let people have it.
Should I open the boxes and take one?
Yeah.
Okay. All of them? or
Not
one
now.
at a time?
After it's done, that's where we open it.
Okay. And all of them are one at a time?
Huh?
All of them are one at a time?
That moderates.
Okay.
Yeah. But don't. Here we go.
I've had this drink since forever. Ouch. She never noticed that I won't drink. All right. Good luck doing this yourself. Bye. I'm gonna call outside. Yeah, I will take that. I'm gonna do it.
Okay. How many of you?
Are we sitting at the second round or?
I think we will make all the candidates sit where they want, but any of them have to come here. Oh, okay. They make me over with everything has to come.
What? It's okay. We're only going one person. Emily, where is this rest? I will not have a laptop. My laptop is connected. Exactly.
I probably hope. That's what they're very good at. Okay, so yeah, I don't think I can't access any of the front panel stuff without a password. So.
Okay, so I think, thanks a lot though. I
Yeah.
mean, we wouldn't have been able to do it without you.
Well, yeah, it's great you brought your own thing. And,
Oh, yeah.
Have to replace the receiver.
So people, the way it will work is Gurbani. During the open forum, see the raised hands only there. So one of you join the Zoom meeting. And from there you can make sure somebody raising their hand. People can ask. We have to. So one of you.
Getting out.
I can join you.
Just keep it on mute.
No, you don't have to go outside.
Okay, can I have my laptop is busy on Zoom, you see on the live stream.
It's for.
Hey dear.
I think I did, but then she just. Oh, right. Is this one was scheme? I know. Okay, thank you. Yeah, Yeah, exactly. I messaged once and then things are reduced to one. I'm sorry for. I'm saying. Yeah, I know. I was going to watch that. I was going to watch that. Still bad. Company something. Hey, how's it going? Religious theocracy. Yeah.
How are you?
So
Where can do you need to pull up the do you have the Zoom link?
I do have a Zoom link.
Can you send it to G?
I am great.
You don't want to share something on this.
Anyway, they're all on the side. That should be good. Okay, thank you.
Where's your Zoom? Is here? There's someone that's trying to join or not. Should be where's your Zoom?
Huh?
Where's your Zoom?
It's right here.
Oh, I knew that. How do we pin this so that it doesn't show up? It's already been pinned.
Just to let you all know, we fixed this line. This room was not used since last 3 years.
Do you know?
You can adjust the height that you want.
You're not
Even
muted.
if you take it out and then you realize.
You're not muted on Zoom.
Stand here and all.
I didn't join with my audio, like it's not connected to
Oh,
my
okay.
laptop audio.
Okay, because I'm like, I don't see like this. The audio thing, that's why.
Yeah, I don't
Okay, okay. You're okay with my laptop, right?
Oh, yeah, I'll have it.
No, you don't.
Gurbani, Safwan, are you going to test your mic at least? Mic.
Yes.
And I think you both can remove mask.
No.
That's on you.
Stop.
Yeah, I removed you. There's no point. But why do you want to join now?
Can everyone hear me? Good afternoon, candidates and everyone who's attending online. Welcome to the International Students Association 2022 Elections Forum. Before we begin, we would like to respectfully acknowledge that the International Students Association and the University of Alberta are located on Treaty 6 territory, and we respect the histories, languages, and cultures of First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and all First Peoples of Canada, whose presence continue to enrich our vibrant community. The International Students Association has a years-long legacy of hosting the ISA Election Forum, where the international students community can learn more about what each candidate contesting in the SU elections has in store for them. So we are happy to have all the candidates at our forum, and we are looking forward to learning more about your goals for serving the international students.
Cool. So I'll briefly introduce the rules for today's forum. The forum will have 3 segments. The first segment will be candidate speeches, where each candidate will have an opportunity to present their platform in a way that depicts their plans for the international students community. Please note that you will have 2 minutes each to deliver your speech. For the second segment, we will ask you questions coming from both the audience attending online and the ones designed by the focus group. Please note that the ISA created a focus group composed of some board members, counselors, and a few international students. These group members were provided with your platforms, and their questions were designed based on their platforms. Keeping the time in mind, the audience questions will be prioritized over focus group questions. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer each question.
If time permits, we will have our third segment, which is the candidates Q&A, where each candidate can ask questions to any other candidate. You will have 30 seconds to ask the question and then 1 minute for response time. So before we move to our first segment, I would like to invite our President Chinpreet to give an opening speech.
You can hear me? Okay, good afternoon, international students. I'm Chinpreet, your ISA president. Welcome to the election forum. 2 years ago, we started the ISA with a vision of creating a change to break the cycle of underrepresentation of our community. Since then, the SU and our fellow SRAs have been supportive to the ISA to make this change. The work that we do for our community is based heavily on the collaboration with the Students' Union. This is why our forum is important, and it gives an opportunity for the international students to learn more about the candidates that their ISA will be collaborating with and the referendums and plebiscites that they will be paying for. There are 4,800 undergraduate international students at the UFA, which is roughly 15% of the undergraduate student body. And it is very important for the candidates to have goals for their terms that will empower them. So I hope that today, the candidates use this opportunity to clearly address international students with what they have in store for a vibrant community. On that note, I would like to wish everyone the best of luck.
So for this forum, we will be going in order from the presidential race after, and then Emily, and then Haroon. And then we will be moving forward with the vice president academic candidates, Gerline and Lamont. After that, it will be vice president external candidates, Chris and Christian. After that, it will be our vice president operations and finance candidates, Julia. Following that, it will be vice presidents and life candidates, Joannie and Roland. Following that, it will be the undergraduate board of governors representative candidate, Alex. After all of the candidates have gone, we will be moving on to the different referendums and plebiscites. First will be the yes side for the Augustana Students Association fee. Then the yes side for the Education Students Association fee. Following that, it will be yes side for the Interdepartmental Science Student Society fee. After that, it will be the yes side for the International Students Association fee. After that, it will be the yes side for the Student Legal Services fee. Following that, it will be the yes side for the World University Science of Canada fee. And finally, it will be yes side for BPIRG plebiscite.
So we will start the speech with the President Grace. Abner, you have the floor.
You may take it off. It's fine.
Hi, international students. My name is Abner Montero, and I'm running to be your next UASU president. International students are part of the mosaic that make the U of A an incredible place to experience new, diverse, and exciting things. And we need to support international students and the contributions that they make to our campus communities. It's no surprise that international students face unique challenges that make it harder for them to get an education here. For example, international students don't qualify for financial aid or grants from the government to help them pay their tuition. You require multiple permits if you want to get an education and work to support yourself financially. And you face racism and discrimination simply for being who you are. Beyond this, many international students don't feel safe using our transit system. And we need to take direct steps in our advocacy to address this issue for all international students and the whole Edmonton community. None of this is acceptable, which is why I've included all of these issues in my platform and will work with the ISA to ensure that international students have the support that they need to succeed and feel safe on our campus. This year's VP Academic, I worked regularly with the ISA to include them in the drafting of SU policies, invited them to the SRA Summit so that international students could collaborate with other faculty associations across campus, and supported the creation of the ISAP, because your ISA works extremely hard to represent you. As president, I will continue this work with the ISA to collaborate in ways to improve the U of A experience for all international students. So on March 9th and 10th, vote Abner Montero to be your next UASU president so that international students can get the representation that they deserve. Thank you.
Thanks, Abner. Emily, you have the floor now. Hi, my name is Emily and I'm running to be your next UASU president. U of A international students face unique challenges to success. During my term as VP Operations and Finance, I met monthly with your outgoing VPs and had conversations about the barriers that international students push through. International students make up over 20% of students. Yet, it seems like the university chooses to ignore this fact and attempts to pave the way for tomorrow without including all students. All services on campus, especially our mental health and wellness services, need to reflect the demographics of our diverse campus community. My cultural background is one where I've never been fully able to open about conversations with my mental health. I know that I'm not alone in this. Our current supports need to reflect diverse perspectives so that all students can feel comfortable reaching out for help. We need to break down barriers to accessing existing supports effectively, and that is our immediate focus. As your president, I will push for increasing resource literacy and the ability of these supports through counseling and clinical services to be inclusive for underserved student demographics, international students in particular. Online learning has been especially challenging for you. The university has had 2 years to figure out a best approach to online learning, and they have not. We are in a different world now, and we have to shift to our new reality. We need to hold the university accountable to their responsibilities to international students. You shouldn't have to be forced to wake up at 3 a.m. for your classes or be expected to travel from one country to the next within 2 days' notice. That's why I will advocate for an effective, student-focused online learning policy that will guarantee students a high-quality education in our changing environment. Thank you. Next, we have Harun. You have the podium.
I love this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Awesome, great. Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you so much to the International Association for actually hosting this forum today. And I'm proud to be here today. The reality is that for me, I'm not going to read from the script to you, because the reality is international students this past year have struggled for these past 2 years, and have struggled even longer before. International students on average pay about $30,000 for an education here a year. And the reality is that even though we make up 21% of students here at the University of Alberta, they don't get enough supports. The reality is tuition increases they're being bludgeoned to them. They're literally being priced out of an education, and that's an issue. The reality is that mental health supports, academic supports don't even help international students. And the reality is that we need a student union that is ready to stand up to this and saying enough's enough. We need to partner with the International Student Association in a non-hostile manner to make sure we can actually advocate better. And when we advocate, it's with hand in hand with the International Student Association. And as president, that's exactly what I want to do. But we also have to, and I agree with VP Montero, we have to address transit safety. And that's one of the reasons why I'm proud to be running for student union president, because I have the experience of working with city council, working with municipal politicians on how to get policy objectives completed. Even with transit safety now, I'm proud to have advocated to the city of Edmonton to actually allocate $3.15 million towards transit safety at all LRT stations in our city. But the reality is, for transit safety, if you want to get transit safety done, the best way is to crowds keep people safe. And we're seeing that now. We're seeing how people feel more safer in our LRT stations, in our transit centers. And that's how we can get it done. But we also have to address, and I agree, we have to address mental health. We have to address sexual violence. Is that the reality is that international students face unique challenges here on campus, and we can't cookie cutter these solutions. So as your president, I'm committed to listening to you. I'm committed to working with the ISA, and I'm committed to listening. Thank you so much.
We will now move on to the Vice President academic race. Gurleen, you have the floor.
Hi everyone. Thanks a lot for being here today. My name is Gurleen Kaur and I'm running to be your next USU VP Academic. Respecting the time allotted to me for this speech, I will brief you on my main goals and my commitment for international students. I will advocate for affordable or no textbooks and make sure that each and every course on Beard Tracks tells whether the textbook is required or not. Also, I will advocate for more and more open educational resources, as I know how difficult it is for international students to manage the expenses when their tuition itself is more than 3 times of the domestic tuition. I will ensure professor accountability and that the USRIs are evaluated regularly, and all the online classes are recorded. I will advocate for low-risk opportunities for interdisciplinary, more work-integrated learning, as we need a secure future after investing a huge amount to university. To make sure that ISA is not left out as it was in the past, I promise a permanent seat at GFC, a guest seat in COFA, and regular consultation and support for all their academic needs. I will also advocate for more need-based and also merit-based funding for international students so that they feel empowered and encouraged for their education, especially in the times of crisis as the Ukrainian students are facing today. In the end, I just want to say that being an international student myself, I can feel all the challenges you face, and I commit to support you going beyond my abilities. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Neil Rickney, and I'm going to be your next Vice President Academic. Thank you to the ISA for hosting this event, and I'd like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 6 territory, home of Indigenous groups that have marked this place as home for decades. I'd also like to take a moment to recognize that today is International Women's Day, and let this day and every day be a reminder about that we must do more to ensure that women on university campus have limitless possibilities and equality. International students have been deeply affected by custom education, reducing the quality of education that they have received and making tuition unaffordable. We must ensure that international students are able to receive the same quality education as they are the future of our province and of our country. If elected Vice President Academic, I am committed to including a seat on COPPA for the International Student Association, in addition to delegating seats on GFC and Senate for international students, so that their academic concerns can be addressed and reflected. I will ensure that the academic cohorts program will include a final roommate program as well, to ensure international students can find those with common ground within both academics and culture, using the model and ideas from the University of Lethbridge program. You must ensure that we have biased procedures as well on the nominating committees, as many international students face barriers such as racial barriers in getting jobs and positions on the students' union. I will advocate for the end of exceptional tuition increases along with our Vice President External, and ensure that those who are intending to stay in Canada, including permanent residents and those intending to apply for Canadian citizenship, are not being treated as second-class citizens and are able to receive the same and don't have to pay the same tuition costs as domestic students. And finally, I'll fight for a refugee support program to ensure we welcome refugees and provide support and empowerment, just like the University of Calgary and Toronto have. To check out more on my platform, you can visit recmeforvpa.com, and on March 9th and 10th, I hope that my ambitious platform will earn your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Milan. Now we'll move to the Vice President External race. Chris, you have the floor.
I'm gonna assume that everybody can hear me. Okay, good. All the other candidates might, so if people weren't able to hear me, that'd be an issue. That was the worst joke. Hello, everybody. My name is Chris, and I'm running for VP External. And so basically, what I want to talk about today is the interests of the province and the federal government as they relate to international students. International students are the future. They come to study here, and they either stay in Canada or head home, and either way, it is beneficial to the U of A, to Alberta, and to Canada as a whole. It is in the interests of the provincial and federal governments to attract more international students and to make the current environment here at the U of A better for international students that are here already. So let's talk about trends. The federal and provincial governments both want to increase the enrollment of international students, but global trends right now are not promising. Last year, enrollment from Chinese students to the U of A dropped dramatically, something that should be worrying to all of us. A lot of the reasons there include COVID and geopolitical issues, but I'm willing to bet that a number of students didn't come to the U of A because of the stories that they heard. They heard about the tuition that was too high to be worth it when you could just go to UBC or U of T instead for a little bit more. They heard that transit in Edmonton was unsafe and that students were being attacked. They heard about the problems that Canadian international students face when trying to get a specific work permit to go on co-op instead of just being able to use the same study visa for internships. And they heard that the U of A has been getting cut hundreds of millions of dollars, is no longer top 50 in the world, and is no longer top 5 in Canada. That's why I structured my platform, knowing that to attract more international students, we need to remain competitive on international student tuition. We need to have easier paths of provincially to permanent residency. We need to have better transit safety. And moreover, we need to make the U of A an attractive school for future international students by making it a better place for current international students. I'm no stranger to working with the ISA. When I was the president of OASIS, the Arts Faculty Association, I worked with the ISA hard to fight for the recording of lectures, to fight for a lot of the problems of online learning, and to fight for the things that international students needed alongside the ISA. I want to continue this fight next year, and thank you.
Christian, you have the floor now.
Everyone hear me well? Perfect.
So yeah, hi everyone. My name is Christian Flotang, and this year I've had the honor of representing you as your Vice President External. Before I go into some of my platform points, what I want to advocate for you on, I want to start by telling a story. 5 years ago, my mother got accepted into a master's program in social work at the Washington University in St. Louis in Missouri, USA. That's where I got exposure to what life as an international student can be like. Even though Canada and the USA are similar in pop culture, language, and social fabrics, still my mother felt distanced, alone, and not to mention the fact that she was a mature learner, so there was a significant generational gap between her and her classmates. At least she got into a RuPaul's Drag Race, so that was really good. But I'm preaching to the choir here, because I know most everyone in this room knows all too well the feeling I just described, and knows all too well the lack of supports that comes from a university or government when you're going through these crises. In Canada's pandemic response, many international students were left behind with supports from all levels of government. This is why entering this role, I made sure to work with all my colleagues to ensure that international students' issues were a priority at all levels of government. At the federal level, we've worked with the government and all opposition parties to pressure the government to eliminate the requirement to obtain a separate work permit to participate in co-op or internships, and we're continuing to do so. At the provincial level, I worked with our partners at the Alberta Students Executive Council to lobby the provincial government to address labor and school shortages by creating a new permanent residency pathway for international students. And at the municipal level, advocating to the city to expand the right transit program to permanently make eligible international students, as well as ensuring that we are coming up with a plan to ensure and support student safety on our transit systems, especially in light of the attacks international students have been victim to while riding transit. Throughout my advocacy, I've ensured that I'm connecting to international students and working with the ISA to ensure their concerns and issues are raised directly to all levels of government, and I know I can continue to do this work to get the results you need. So on March 9th and 10th, re-elect Fotang to keep fighting for you. Thank you.
We will now be moving on to the Vice President Operation and Finance. Julia, you have the floor.
Hello everyone, my name is Julia Veloso. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm running to be your next Vice President of Operations and Finance. Just with that statement, I know I come from a place of privilege. As a domestic student, culture shock was not part of the compounded hardships in my transition into university. I had a network of support, friends who helped me navigate this new environment and find my passions in student governance. If you're an international student, you probably had to uproot your entire lives. You can be time zones away from your support systems and have to rebuild your communities from new. This is why it's rare to see international students run for major positions in student governance. From potential cultural differences combined with bureaucracy and various institutional barriers, it can be extremely difficult to want to get involved. For international students, your gateway into governance has been through the ISA. The ISA has uplifted, encouraged, and amplified international students in advocacy, empowering you to speak up for yourselves on issues that pertain to you and your experiences. This is why it's crucial to provide the ISA with an office space. International students need to be able to easily access their biggest representative body on campus. You have been promised this space for 2 years now to no avail, and I want to make sure that this promise is actually accomplished next year. Being able to enter governance enabled me to find a community of students who are like-minded, wanting to create positive change in student lives. And I hope to continue to do that next year as your VPOF. I hope to earn your support on March 9 and 10. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Julia. Just a change in plan. After all the candidates' speech, we will take a 5-minute break so that you all can grab coffee and some snacks. And the candidates, I mean, after the side speech as well. So once every speech is done, we will move to the break. But for now, we move to the Vice President Student Life Race. Since Joanie couldn't attend the forum, she informed us that she had a sickness this morning, and because of that, she couldn't be here with us today. So we will just move to Rowan. Rowan, you have the floor now.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, students. My name is Rowan Morris. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm running to be your next Vice President Student Life. I'm very grateful to have been invited to this forum, and I'm so excited to be able to share my ideas with you all. International students are a vibrant gift to this campus, and I'm tired of the reality that you have been underserved. Our mental health supports on campus are exhausted, and when you factor in the likelihood of international students requiring support to navigate loneliness, isolation, and homesickness, these wait times only appear more abhorrent. Now more than ever, we need to end the monopoly on student support services. International students need to be able to access wellness services that meet the needs on their timelines, as well as what methods of support will work best for them. International students need to be respected and appreciated for the significant benefits you all bring to the university and the province. If elected, I promise to work alongside the ISA and advocate for a shift in political perspectives of international students. The contributions you all bring to our community and economy should not be followed by a deportation when you graduate. International students deserve justice, and they deserve a degree that they enjoy and a degree that benefits them. On March 9th and 10th, vote Rowan for Vice President Student Life. Thank you.
We will now be moving on to our undergrad Board of Governors representative candidate. Alex, you have the floor.
Hello, international students. My name is Alex Dorshad. I'm ready to be your undergraduate Board of Governors representative. I am a third-year student in the Bachelor of Commerce program, majoring in finance and minoring in accounting. So my platform consists of three main points, all of which I think are very important to international students. The first main point that I'm running on is I'm going to be advocating for hybrid learning in the long run of this institution. The University of Alberta has indicated it wants to increase to 50,000 students by 2026. International students are going to play a huge role in this. We need to increase international students as, in order to get more funding from the provincial government for the performance-based funding model, they need to increase international student enrollment. In order to do this, I think hybrid learning is very important for them, as they'll be able to attend classes online, and they'll also be able to attend classes in person. This is very important for international students as they're of the local time discrepancies. It could be 3 a.m. where you're trying to attend classes. You wouldn't want to wake up at that time to do your classes when you can stay home with your family or be sleeping. So that'll be a huge role for my platform is to advocate that for the long run of the institution. Secondly, I want to create more transparency for the Board of Governors, and international students have a voice on that. If international students are unfairly getting their tuition rates increased and increased and increased with no consultation to them, they could be priced out of an education, and the university won't be able to meet their international enrollment targets. So they're going to have a huge role in speaking to the Board of Governors and having their own voices heard at the board, so that the Board of Governors understands how to achieve their targets they have. Thirdly, I'm also going to be standing up against further increases on international students. Already having to pay over $30,000 a year for an education here is absolutely insane. And if you're going to be priced out of that, then the university is not going to be able to achieve their targets, and they could lose funding over time if they're not meeting their performance targets set to them by the provincial government. So as your Board of Governors representative, I'm going to let your voice heard so that Board of Governors knows that they cannot do what they want to do.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Now we move to the referendum and plebiscites. So do we have a yes side for the Augustina Students Association fee? Don't have anyone. So do we have someone from the yes side of Education Students Association fee? Okay, do we have a yes side for ICE? Okay, so we'll move on to the International Students Association fee then. You have the floor now.
Hello, international students. My name is David, and I'm the president-elect of the ISA. The International Students Association has made a lot of progress over the past 2 years, and since its inception, it has made great achievements. We advocated not only to have lectures recorded, but to also have international students be included in the right transit program. We're currently working on making sure that transit is safer for you, and that we're exploring permanent residency options. ISAF is a $3.5 fee per semester. As international students, we pay a lot of fees, and so we have made it possible for you to opt out of this fee during any semester if you do not wish to pay this fee. What will this fee provide you with? So the first thing is the iCard. So this card can be used to avail discounts throughout Edmonton. Second thing is awards for international students. International students make our campus life vibrant, so we want to recognize that. Thirdly, all year round events and welcome events for international students. Fourth, mental health workshop and professional development workshops so that international students can join the Canadian workforce. 5, to make sure that your regional groups are well represented and they can host internationally focused events. And 6, to make your ISA stronger so that we can continue representing you, make your voice amplified. So on March 9th and 10th, I request you to vote yes for ISA so that we can support you throughout your university life. Thank you.
Do we have the yes side for the student legal services? Awesome. Floor.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jeremy. I'm the representative from Student Legal Services. Student Legal Services is a not-for-profit ran by law students at the University of Alberta. We provide free legal services to low-income people and University of Alberta undergraduates. We've been doing this work for 50 years, and we've had a partnership with the Students' Union for the past 20 years. This fee is particularly important for international students. You're already strapped for cash because of the high tuition costs, but accessing a lawyer is even further out of reach for international students. You may not know this, but in Canada, the government has no obligation to provide you a lawyer if you are charged with a crime or if you're in a legal dispute where maybe your landlord is not treating you fairly. SLS is there to provide legal representation and legal information to you in these circumstances. For a $3 per semester fee, you have guaranteed legal representation and legal information. This is an excellent value given that most lawyers will charge you $6,000 to $7,000 for a retainer. That's just the fee to have them pick up the phone, and $30,000 to $40,000 bare minimum for them to represent you at trial. We're also adding a few new services this year that are especially important for international students. This includes our Residency Assist program. It may be intimidating if you're living in residence and residence is asking things of you if they're not getting your damage deposit back, or if they're trying to kick you out. We'll make sure that residence respects your rights, and we'll go to court for you even. And finally, I just want to talk about our legal education reform project. Since you're coming to Canada, you may not be aware of the law and the rights that you have here. We offer free legal information on our website. Thank you.
We have a yes side from the World University Service of Canada, please.
Sure.
Hello, everybody. My name is Urba. I am a 5th year student studying molecular genetics, and I'm here to talk to you today about the World University Service of Canada Student Refugee Fund. WUSC is a Canada-wide humanitarian organization that works very closely with partners such as the United Nations, as well as the Canadian government. It has been active at the U of A for over 30 years, during which time it has regularly collected a 52-cent DFU, or fee, per student per semester to run what we call the Student Refugee Program, or the SRB. This program allows a group of student volunteers to bring young refugee students to the U of A and help them obtain an undergraduate degree. The fee is used to cover living expenses for the students, such as rent, food, winter clothing, which is very important, SRP students are granted permanent residency in Canada, and the main goal of the program is to give young refugees a chance at higher education, while also teaching them to be self-reliant. To match the increased cost of living for refugee students as a result of budget cuts and inflation, we are asking to increase the $0.52 levy to $1.50 per student per semester, which is about the same as the price of a small cup of coffee. Although being an international student and being a refugee are two very different things, as international students, you are in a unique position to better understand the struggles that both groups go through. Language barriers, culture shock, and the high cost of living to income ratio, to name a few. We want to continue sponsoring refugees to study at the U of A, especially given recent developments in Afghanistan and Ukraine. Thank you for listening, and please vote yes for the Refugee Student Fund on March 9th and 10th.
And I do know we have a yes side from the Alberta Public Interest Research Group, so you have to vote now.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Sarah Almio, and I'm representing APERT, the Alberta Public Interest Research Group. So on March 9th and 10th, the Students' Union will ask you a question. Do you continue to support a small optional fee to fund the Alberta Public Interest Research Group, also known as APERT? We're a student-run nonprofit that for over 20 years has funded projects designed by undergraduate students, which uplift our campus communities. We have provided $124,000 in funding since the beginning of the pandemic to students whose community-based projects promote an inclusive, just, and diverse campus that empowers us all to be active citizens and transform our communities both locally and beyond. We've supported a number of community events and projects working in areas of harm reduction, gender-based violence, food equity, and arts and cultures. These projects and events were led by groups such as Palestine Solidarity Network, Edmonton Natural Hair Show, Edmonton Organic Growers Guild, Indigenous Poets Society, Future Librarians for Intellectual Freedom, and Canadian Students for Sensible Drug Policy, just to name a few. APERT continues to provide members with a number of services despite the challenges of navigating through the pandemic. So a number of these are offered online, including free training and workshops on grant writing, anti-oppression, consensus-based decision-making, as well as offering meaningful volunteer opportunities and opportunities to get board experience as an undergraduate student. We also offer an alternative resource library that features hard-to-find titles, as well as an annual almanac featuring local students and artists' work. So on March 9th and 10th, please vote yes to continue supporting an inclusive, just, and diverse campus. More info is available at apert.org/yes. Thanks.
So since we have a little extra time, the break will be 10 minutes instead, and we will continue at 12:48. So enjoy your coffee.
That's a lot.
Look, I am so sleepy.
Me too.
Wait, Medina, there's two coffees in the thing, right?
And it's C, yeah, it's labeled on top of the C that it's.
It's definitely not my fault.
Okay, so now we will move to the second segment of our forum. We will be asking you questions coming from both the audience attending online via Zoom and our live stream, and the ones designed by our focus group. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer each question. We will begin with a question for all candidates. So we would be going in the order that we followed for the speech, but just something reversed for like the candidates, like the order in which
Do we
candidates
have
come.
online question?
So our first question is for all candidates. And I'll say the question now and then I'll announce the order in which we can come and answer. Please remember you have 1 minute to answer the question. So the question is, mention one thing that you will accomplish in your term that will empower international students. And Harun, you have the floor. Awesome.
Awesome, yeah, thanks for the question. It's a phenomenal question. Well, it's simple. First thing I'm going to do as president is I'm going to allocate the room in the basement of sub to the ISA immediately. I think giving the ISA space to actually have a permanent home where they can actually, students, international students can actually go to help makes sense. You know what I mean? I don't understand why it's taken 2 years for someone to actually get something done. And with my first week as president, I'll get it done. I'll make sure that I actually have space that students can actually come to really actually have that support there as well. And I'll make sure to work with the ISA president to make sure that we're doing better advocacy too, and to make sure that we can actually have a connection there, and then we can repair the broken relationship that has been broken by the current SU executive team. Thank you.
Thank you, Harun. Next, Emily, you have the floor.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So as I said in my speech, one thing that I plan to do for international students is break down the barriers that currently exist when it comes to accessing mental health support, specifically working with counsel and clinical services. My mom was an international student, and I know from my own cultural background that mental health is a taboo, to be very blunt. And, you know, especially in the past 2 years, with online classes and education being extremely difficult, we need to ensure that all students are supported. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. After you have the floor.
Yes, I think there are a lot of, I think there are a lot of ways that we can empower international students on our campus. Few of them are by making campus a safer place for them, also a more accessible place for them to learn. But I think one of the biggest things is creating a space on campus for them to have community and work together and be able to enjoy themselves. When I was president of Kissers, one of the biggest ways that we created community on campus, or sorry, the Kinesiology Sport and Recreation Student Society, my faculty association, is to have a space where we can allow students in our faculty to come in, sit down, to have conversations, informal meetings, just to understand what we do and how we support them. And right now, the International Student Association doesn't have that. And I want to work with them to make sure they can find the space before all of your international students come back in fall 2022, so you can experience what campus life is like and create a community for yourselves before you start your semester.
Next, we go to Vice President Academic Candidate Milan. You have the floor.
Yeah, so thank you for the question. So if I become elected vice president academic, the first thing I'm going to do in the first week I'm vice president academic is immediately file a motion and try to get it passed through council to immediately give the ISA a seat in COFA. I think the underrepresentation has gone on for too long. in the ISA, and it's time that international students have a voice, and that those voices that are covered by those paradigms are heard. But I understand that we need to also go much further than just giving ISA a seat. We need to make sure to represent in all facets of our university, and that's why I advocate to delegate seats in GFC and Senate to the ISA, and we need to make sure we make sure in a nominating committee that procedures are fair and that they're unbiased against international students, and also making sure that I work with Vice President External, as I said before, to end the exceptional tuition increases that disproportionately affected international students and ensure that international students receive proper support. Thank you.
So thank you for the question. For international students, my main focus will be more work integrated learning. So the programs that doesn't offer co-op, I will make sure that it is easy to get some work experience in those programs as well, to make sure that the international students who invest a lot of money to their degree don't feel empty-handed once they're done with it. Whether they want to stay in Canada or go back to their home countries, they should be equipped to secure a good future and follow their dreams. Thank you.
Next, we'll go to the Vice President External Race. Christian, you have the floor.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, the first thing I'd say would be a priority and that's feasible to accomplish is creating a partnership between UISUC and CASA, because I know UISUC is a very new group into the federal lobby sphere and they need that support and they need the connections to actually advocate for international students at the federal level, and we can make those connections to make it happen. But also because the provincial government has an internationalization strategy as part of its Alberta 2030 plan, working with them to see how we can actually create a proposal for a new immigration stream. So that's the things I think are feasible and we'll be able to accomplish this year. Thank you.
You have the floor now.
Policy moves slowly, and I'm going to be fighting and advocating to make sure that the movement starts, and to make sure that the government starts creating the kind of policy changes that are needed. But what I can promise by the end of the term is better transit safety. And so in particular, that's why a large part of my platform focuses on transit safety for here and also for like the LRT stations as well. Understanding that we need internet and cell service down in the university LRT station. Understanding that we need sustainable solutions to the movement and migration of vulnerable folks that are leaving the downtown core and coming more and more to the university area to use it as a shelter site and as a consumption site to instead find sustainable solutions to make sure those folks are going to actual shelters and actual consumption sites that support them better than we possibly could, while also ensuring that we have quick response times for the like COTT, Community Outreach Transit Team, and also making sure that we have more first aid kits in the LRT station as well to help keep international students safe. And that's what I can certainly promise during my term.
Next, we come to the Vice President Operations and Finance race. Julia, you have the floor now.
I think the number one way in which the SU can really support international students is through services. Sort of being in this new country and in this completely new environment, the SU is really can be the only way in which students, international students can really find mental health supports, sexual violence supports. And that's why I really want to focus on UASU Cares and making sure that this wellness directory service, I work with ISA to make sure that it knows the needs of international students. Empower Me is also another great resource I think needs to be further highlighted so the international students know that they can use it in a bunch of different countries outside of Canada as well. So I really want to focus on supporting international students through the SU services.
Now move to the Vice President Student Life race. Rowan, you have the floor now.
One thing that I believe I can accomplish in my campaign is making sure that students recognize that international students are more than just international students. While volunteering at the landing this past year, I was able to meet plenty of international students who fall into the intersections of being international students as well as being queer students. And I've heard their cries about how challenging it is to be able to change your name. Many of them are scared that when they send their transcripts back to maintain their student visa, that there will be issues and they'll be sent back to the countries they came from. We need to make sure that we're recognizing that intersectional identities do have an impact on our students and ensuring that our professors are able to adequately handle that without bringing xenophobia into the classroom on top of other biases. Thank you.
Finally, we move to the undergraduate board of governors representative candidate. Alex, you have the floor now.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So the question was, what will I accomplish during my term to empower international students? I think what I can do during my term to empower international students is that I'm going to be creating permanent Instagram and Facebook accounts where students can directly reach out to me. They can email me, they can message me, they can DM me, so I can truly understand their concerns. I'll also be inviting them to the board of governors to speak when this issue is directly related to international students. So the board of governors, everyone that's making decisions around that table will know exactly what and how it's going to impact international students. So that's what I'm going to do to empower international students. It's allow them to speak for themselves so the board can truly understand what the impact is going to have on them. Thank you.
Thank you. Since we don't have any questions from the audience yet, we'll start with the focus group questions. The first one will be for the presidential candidates. So this one is specifically for Arun. When you talk about advocacy for permanent residency streams for international students, how are you going to achieve that? What type of residency streams are you talking about? By when can we see some progress on this?
Awesome. Yeah, no, the permanent residency stream is something I'm actually quite familiar with. It's called, my family's actually been trying to get my grandmother here to Canada. And so I know quite well the system is broken. The reality is that in 2020, and 2021 actually as well, the Minister of Immigration, Sean Fraser, he's currently right now the Minister of Immigration, sorry. They actually created a good program. It was a really simple program that simplified the program for getting what's called permanent residency after graduation. And it was a great program. And I'm disappointed that the government of Canada has removed this program. And some of you as internationals probably know about this program. And as president of your student union, I'll work with CASA, I'll work with the VP External to make sure that we're going back to government and asking them, why did you remove this program? And holding them accountable to make sure that students, especially international students, are able to stay in this country after they graduate if they wish to, and to really make sure that they have these supports. So yeah, thanks so much for the great question.
We have actually 2 questions for each candidate in the presidential race. So the next question is also for you.
Awesome.
Having more academic advisors and more staff for sexual assault center would require more money. How will you ensure that these advocacy goals do not lead to higher international tuition?
Absolutely. The reality is the international tuition is already skyrocketed. $30,000 for a 1 year for each year is ridiculous. Compared to the regular domestic student that pays $6,000. International students should not be the first to board in these massive tuition increases. What we need to do, and what I'm going to do as your president, so I'm going to make sure we strengthen our advocacy. The reality is that we need to hold the provincial government accountable for this funding. International students should not be the burden and should not be the people that the university administration turn to immediately when the tuition increases need to be talked about. We need to make sure that our government is funding post-secondary education. We cannot be priced out of post-secondary education. And as president, I'm going to make sure we hold our government accountable. And I have the most experience to do it. Thank you.
So do you have any questions from the audience? So it's a question for Rusk from ECWAT, who is affiliated with Gateway. And the question is, where can students find more information about what the $1.5 fee will cost?
for that. That's an excellent question. If you want more information about what the fee will cover specifically, you can follow us on Instagram at UAlberta, so that at WUSC UAlberta. Yeah, that'll be it. But basically, in my speech, I covered that it would cover living expenses, so things like rent, food. We try to encourage refugee students to not really buy textbooks unless they absolutely need them, because textbooks are expensive. But if they do need one for a course, it would also cover things like that. As well, many refugee students don't come here with any kind of technology, so things like a laptop and phone. We try to get those donated from our partners, but in the years that we can't, this fee will be used to purchase a secondhand or just like a cheap phone that will, get them through the year. So we'll cover things like that. But that's an excellent question, and follow us on Instagram if you would like more information. Thank you.
We will be moving back to the focus group questions while we wait for more questions from the audience. This next one will be for Emily. And the question is, how are you going to add a culturally sensitive lens to mental health services to support international students? Are we talking about staff which can speak multiple languages, for instance? Also considering counseling and clinical services are under the university and not the SU, so up to what extent would you be able to achieve this?
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. So as I said in my speech, I feel like we keep saying that, the most important issue right now is the resource literacy. So it's making sure that those resources are available to international students. Now, the next step after that is making sure that if you are going to counsel and clinical services, there's somebody that you can talk to that can understand the concerns. I can understand as a Black woman myself, it's completely frustrating when you're reaching out to a doctor or a therapist and there's nobody who looks like you, there's nobody who can understand you. And that's why I want to address those issues so that we take down those barriers and you can access the support that you need. We have another question for you. So last year, as promised, you were going to work with the ISA to have an office space, but unfortunately it wasn't completely fulfilled. This year, we do not find that in your platform. So can you please explain us what's your plan for the ISA office space? Yeah, another great question. I've been asked this question a lot over the last few weeks. So I'll give you a brief rundown of what happened over the past few months. So right when I began my term as VP Operations and Finance, I had a few meetings with space optimization at the university to try and find a space. Unfortunately, there is no room in the Students' Union building, and the space dimensions at the ISA and the requests that they wanted, unfortunately, sub was not the most optimal space. So working together with space optimization and the university, we found a potential space, and we were in the midst of signing all the leases and the contracts, and unfortunately, there was a miscommunication with the university and space optimization, and that space was no longer available. Now, since then, I've had multiple follow-up meetings to try and find a space for the ISA. My goal is by the end of my term to find them a permanent space on campus, because I do understand that community supports are so important and the ISA need that support. Thank you.
So continuing on, this next question is for Amber. You are the only candidate that included transit safety in your platform, and the focus group really appreciates it. However, you did not mention in your platform how you are going to address it.
I absolutely can explain. Yes, so I think there are multiple components to this problem. The first one is physical infrastructure. And right now, working with the city of Edmonton, working with the Edmonton Student Alliance and our VP External to address the physical infrastructure problems like the poor lighting that are in the LRT stations, or the fact that if an international student has a problem, they see an issue in the LRT station, they can't use the phone or use their cell phone because there's no cell phone service. That's something that needs to be addressed right away. I think the second component of this is that if an international student does have an issue, that when they call for support, there's integrated crisis response and there's social support for the people who are put in these situations. Because right now, the problem persists. If we support somebody who's in the LRT station and they have nowhere else to go, they could just end up back, they could end up back there again. And we need to make sure that we're providing social supports as well to make sure the problems don't persist and people can feel safe in the LRGs.
Thank you, Arthur. So similar to what we asked Haroon, when you talk about advocacy for permanent residency streams for international students, how are you planning to achieve that? What type of residency streams are you talking about, and when can we see some progress on that front?
Sure. So the permanent residency stream that I'm talking about is a provincial stream, primarily to have a system that's similar to Manitoba, for example. Because right now, when international students want to apply for permanent residency, they're competing against other people who are also applying for permanent residency that aren't international students, which makes it extremely more challenging for them to get permanent residency in Alberta. And I want to work with our VP External, work with the Council of Alberta University students to make sure that the promises the provincial government have made in order to implement a permanent stream for international students can happen. I can't commit to what that timeline will look like because I'm not 100% sure, but I can commit to giving you regular updates and making sure that you're aware of what is happening.
Thank you, Abner. We just have a question from live, and it seems like it's directed for all the candidates. So how we'll accommodate that is that we'll just ask that question for a candidate. So we'll just resume with you, Abner.
Sure.
From year after year, it seems like SU cares about international students only during elections. How will you stay accountable for your promises?
I think the most important thing is that I'm meeting regularly with the International Students Association, not just me, but the whole executive team, to make sure that we have a shared understanding of what we are going to do going forward. One of the things that I do want to do is sit down with the ISA before our term starts and make sure that we're outlining exactly what our plan is going to be for the year, so that the Students' Union knows what they're advocating for, but the ISA also knows what we're going to be advocating for and how we're going to work together to further the interests of international students.
Thank you.
That's all. Yeah, more questions. Good.
That's good. The previous question was directed to all the candidates. We will like to have Emily back on.
Do you want us to repeat the question?
Yeah, thank you for that question once again. I think to stay accountable, you need to establish a strong, firm relationship and a good communication. And that's why this year I met monthly with your outgoing VP Finance and your VP Internals. And there we formed a really good relationship and we were able to talk about the issues that international students were currently facing. And as your next president, I plan to continue that same relationship, ensuring that all the execs are meeting with their respective counterparts. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Haroon, you have the floor now. Do you want us to repeat the question? No.
I'm sure put my timer on just to make sure I stay on point. This is actually really, really important. I'm very happy to so back to ask this question. Sorry. Yeah. No, here's the reality. The reality is that asking the same people that broke the system to fix the system is ridiculous. Because the reality is that they had an opportunity to fix the system. And this has been one of the worst years for the ISA and for the student union's relationship, to the point where the ISA was actually threatening to go to the minister to get their own status. Because the student union has historically not listened to international students' concerns. And as president, I'm going to change that. We're going to make sure that we're listening to them, and we're going to make sure that they have a voice in all of our advocacy meetings, and to ensure too that we're working with them. And one of the best ways we can do this is by giving them a space. You know what I mean? We can give them a temporary space and stuff to actually ensure that they can actually have the tools that they need to advocate. And as president, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Haroon.
We will now be going back to the focus group questions, and we will be starting the questions for our Vice President External candidates. This one is for Christian. You want to advocate for more need-based financial aid, which is great as it's been even an ISA property for years. The registrar's office uses international financial aid to attract new international students rather than support current students. So since your portfolio is more related to external advocacy, how are you going to advocate for more need-based funding within the university, where registrar's office is a huge barrier to this, as it's not in their enrollment target?
Well, thank you for the question. And my plan for that is basically, there's something called financial consolidation, which means that the university's budget is tied to the provincial's budget, meaning that anytime the government wants to access, the university wants to access reserve funds or flexible funding, they need to go to the provincial government for permission for that. Now, with deconsolidation, this would allow the university to access these funds without needing to get permission from the government. And so it also allows them to dip into these reserve funds so they can use those to fund cost scholarships, grants, and bursaries, also like hire more staffing. So we're supporting the university's goal in getting the government to deconsolidate the university from provincial government's budget and hopefully find different areas of access to promote more scholarships for both domestic and international students. Thank you.
You can stay on the floor for now. Going back to the live question that we had before, question that's from year to year. It seems like SU cares about international students only during elections. How will you stay accountable for your policy?
Oh, that's a great question. It's it's a sentiment that not only ISA feels, a lot of SRAs feels, a lot of students feel. And I think doing what I think my team this year has been really good at doing is meeting with our counterparts and making sure we have sustained communication, sharing any kind of priorities or projects we're working on. For example, before I went to go speak to the House of Commons Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration, I made sure to come talk to ISA Council, talk to the ISA execs, making sure that your experiences were being shared with these high-level government officials and MPs and senators, but also finding other ways that, like a goal of mine was to hopefully get ISA to be meetings with these MPs. Sadly, that wasn't able to occur this year, but still finding those opportunities where we can have ongoing collaboration. And like I said, even with the Union of International Students, United International Students Union of Canada, like finding ways to collaborate and keeping a sustained form of relationships.
Thank you, Christian. Next, we have a focus group question for Chris. How are you going to advocate for more financial support from grants for the international students?
That's an absolutely fabulous question. And it's one where I think the themes that I want to touch on here are things that I brought up in my opening speech. Understand that since it's in the provincial and federal government's interests to attract international students, we need to make this a competitive tuition jurisdiction and a competitive policy jurisdiction. So when it comes to securing grant funding, it's making the case from an economic perspective, from like an internationalization and growth perspective to provincial and federal government, that having grants that students can access, like mid their degree, if their currency devalues back home, or if something happens, or if they go through financial crisis, that they can still finish their degree, makes this then a better jurisdiction to attract future international students who will apply to the U of A knowing that those supports exist. So when it comes to securing that grant funding, it's telling the provincial government what they need to hear, which is that we share the same goal. We want more international students here. The way that we get that is by making this a good policy jurisdiction for international students. And the way that we make this a good policy jurisdiction is by putting these grants up front. And frankly, it's not going to be that much, especially for like a pilot program. We can start with an amount and go from there. So proud to give a very long answer.
Going to the live question that we have from before. From year after year, it seems like SU cares about international students only during elections. How will you stay accountable for your promises?
Absolutely fabulous question. And that's something that I think has been really rough and that I've been trying to work towards or work against while I was a counselor. Throughout this entire year, as an arts counselor, I was meeting with the ISA to talk about the upcoming ISAF, sharing my support as someone who ran the Faculty Association membership fee for OASIS last year. Last year, I wasn't an exec, I wasn't even on Students' Council, but I had a ton of meetings with the ISA just as the OASIS president, because it was important that we were on the same page, and it was important that we stayed accountable on each other and work together. The only way that I was able to bring international student concerns forward at GFC, forward at the Council of Student Associations, or sorry, no, that's not what COSA stands for, but at COSA, the GFC subcommittee that works with the provost, was because I was staying accountable to the ISA and talking to them. So when it comes to what I want to do next year, it's yes, again, doing the bare minimum, which is like the counterpart meetings that are so important, but it's also making sure that we're doing everything else and just building those relationships that I found so helpful during my last 2 years and that I want to continue maintaining during the future as well.
A question from our audience, four of us, from the class, so from the gateway. And the question is, in the previous years, there was dedicated fee in the DFU, has been non-refundable, and a portion of it has gone towards funding the administrative costs of this. Is this still the case? And if so, how much?
That too is a really good question. So in the past, part of the student levy has also gone towards paying the WUSC membership fee, I guess, because WUSC is a Canadian organization. We're present at a lot of different campuses across Canada, and all of the local committees, as they're called, have to pay a fee in order to keep the program running. And just to cover the cost of like the plane ticket, for example, that the students need to buy in order to actually come to Canada. So that fee is $5,000, and it is something that we will continue to pay every single year that we are sponsoring a student, or more students, hopefully, with the new fee. Thank you for your question.
Thank you. Moving on to the focus group questions. Next, we have a question for the VP student life race for row 1. There are no particular questions from the platform. However, as we clarified yesterday, there was a communication gap due to which ISA and Rowan could not do a consultation. Can you please tell us then if you consulted with any international students, not the ISA, but just any international student at the U of A? And if so, what came out of the consultation?
Yeah, I have. So through my job, I've been connected to a lot of international students and have been able to hear a lot about how international students are experiencing grief in our residences specifically. Because of that, I've made sure to reach out to coworkers of mine as well as friends that I have made to talk to them about the issues that they're experiencing, both before I was developing my platform and during, to ensure that I'd be able to advocate for international students on all platforms as I'm able to. Yeah, I apologize for not being able to have our shifts sort of align, but I have been experiencing a lot of technical issues since changing my name at Veritrax, and I recognize how that appears to international students, but I do promise that I am committed to ensuring that I'm able to advocate for you and listen to you, and I have done that through personal relationships that I've built. Thank you.
Just going to the live question. From year after year, it seems like SU cares about international students only during elections. How will you stay accountable for your promises?
I think this is really important. As a queer person, I often feel the same. Reading a lot of platforms that talk about equity, diversity, and inclusion, they often seem like tautologies 3 months into a term. I know how it feels to be promised something and for it not to happen, which is why I'll be committed to meeting with the ISA regularly if I am to be elected, as well as making sure that I'm able to elevate international student successes, being able to use the social media platform that I will have as BPSL to be like, hey, look what the International Student Association has done. Look what this international student has done. I believe that recognizing successes is another way of how we'll be able to improve relationships to work better together, but also to make sure that we're incorporating celebration into recognition and accountability.
Thank you. We'll now be moving on for questions for the Vice President's Finance and Operations candidate. This one's for Julia. The question is, you have not provided any timeline to provide ISA with an office space on campus in your platform. Could you state on how you are going to work to get the ISA an office space that it needs to maintain a strong interaction on campus with its community?
Yeah, thank you so much for this question. So as my previous conversations with ISA already, I have met with SU staff who have basically told me the situation, given as I'm an arts council this year and not in the role. And I feel it's unrealistic to give you a timeline that's very short and sticking myself to that timeline because you've already been disappointed in the past 2 years of this office. And I want to make sure if I'm making a promise, I'm going to keep it. I sent an email already to the ISA in terms of like my the timelines that I presume that I can get you this office, but I think just having really short timelines and not sticking to them will be a bigger disappointment than not having a timeline in the first place.
Thank you. And we'll be going back to the last question that we had earlier. And so the question is, how will you stay accountable for your policies?
Yeah, so thank you so much for this question. My platform actually has points that aims to empower and amplify international students, and I really want to have better relationships with our SRAs and meeting with people on a monthly basis. Currently this year, what I do in my Joy Young Council Instagram, I've given updates all year on my platform and what I've been doing as an arts counselor and all the progress that I've been made. I want to make myself accessible and continue this work next year with students through social media and having office hours in order to keep myself available to them. More so, I want to ensure that I'm the one reaching out to students in terms of keeping myself accountable, because it shouldn't be up to students to do that. So I want to do the groundwork for consultation. And on top of that, I want to make sure to also have monthly meetings like every other candidate that's already mentioned with the ISA, and they'll have my full support in meeting with all the counterparts and listening to your needs.
Thank you, Julia. We have focus group questions for the VP academic candidates. The first question is for Gurleen. And the question is, as an international student, you have been at GFC and the Students' Council. So can you tell us about a time when you advocated for international students during those roles?
Thank you for the question. So as I was elected in the by-election, so I just spent like 5-6 months on council, but in that time frame, I did advocate, like I presented an issue that belonged to international students, a specific community, and I tried to spread awareness, and I have been constantly posting stuff on my council page to aware students about the problems that international students face. Thank you.
Thank you, Gurleen. Moving on to the live question that we had from before. How will you stay accountable for your promises?
So as we never had a SU exec, an international student, so like although I can advocate for Aboriginal students and also the Black people, but like the true problems that I can specify would be for international students, because I am an international student myself. So as I said, I'm promising a seat at GFC for International Students Association, because they can represent themselves in a better way than others can do. And I'll be backing them and supporting them with my full abilities. And also I'm the part of World Sick Organization, where we are constantly working for refugees and also international students. And I have been doing a lot of radio talks on the same issue as well.
You? Our question for Milan, and the question is, you want to advocate for income-based tuition. When and how will this happen?
All right, thank you for the question. So I think when it comes to income-based tuition, the first thing I think that we need to do, honestly, you know, I understand that this may not be something that I'm going to have entirely in control. This is something more related to the Vice President's role, but it is still something that I think will affect academics, because like how can anyone focus on their academics or be able to afford academic materials if their finances are going entirely toward paying down their tuition or their housing? So the first thing that I'm going to do is work with the Vice President external. We need to stop the exceptional tuition increases that have been proposed. Some of them being over double the cost of what they were before. That's the first thing that we need to do. And then after that, we need to work with the stakeholders responsible, you know, such as the government of Alberta, such as the University of Alberta Board of Governors, to figure out a way to find out how we're going to make this income-based tuition, whether like what tax brackets are we going to be using, what documents are we going to be using, et cetera, and also try to maybe integrate like thank you.
The next question is, oh, you can stay on the second question.
Oh, sorry.
And this question is the same as before for the other candidates, and the question is, how will you stay accountable for your promises?
So like I said before, the first thing I'm going to do in my first week in office is immediately file a motion to give the International Students Association a seat in council. And I think that and I'll make sure at these meetings happen monthly, as GFC meeting, COFA meetings happen monthly. I think that'll be one way to ensure that I'll stay accountable to the International Students Association, because we'll have that perspective in COFA to be able to hold us to account, you know, what the concerns of international student associations that are not really expressed or are vaguely expressed by faculty associations because of the power dynamics. So I think having that seat in the having the ISA seat in CAFA will be the first way to will greatly increase accountability, and I'll make sure that I'm consistent with consultation as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Milan. Next, we have a focus group question for the undergraduate board of governors representative candidate Alex. Can you explain your consultation plan during your term as the board of governors representative to ensure how your advocacy will include international students prospect? The previous board of governors representative Dave had requested for a seat on the ISA's Committee on International Students Affairs to do so. Would you continue to do that with the ISA?
Yeah, the way that I plan to consult with the ISA is really just to reach out to you guys, have periodic meetings, whether it be bi-weekly, once a month, whatever makes sense for the position is how I plan to consult with you guys. And if what was working before with Dave was working with you guys before, I'm definitely open to continuing to do that. I'm really open to any solution that's going to make the ISA happy, make them really feel like their voices are being heard on the board. So that's how I plan to do that.
Thank you, Alex. Going to the live question, how will you stay accountable for your promises?
Yeah, I'll stay accountable for my promises by providing periodic updates on my Instagram and Facebook accounts of what's going on at the Board of Governors and how we're advocating for students. So I'll be staying accountable by having those meetings with the ISA as well to let them know what's going on at the Board of Governors and to give them updates on what's happening.
Thank you. So this next question is a focus group question for all the referendums and plebiscites. And the question is, can all fee reps present in 30 seconds on what their fee shall provide to international students specifically and why they should vote yes? We'll go backwards kind of from how we started originally. And we'll have the Alberta Public Interest Research Group plebiscite first.
Please note that you have 30 seconds for this after the question.
So what APERC has to offer for international students and students more broadly is funding to fund your projects, your student groups. Every semester, students can apply for up to $2,000 in funding to support your own project, as well as you have access to us as a resource to support your application for our grants, as well as any other grants you might be applying for, whether that's a scholarship or a grant for a project that you're working on or a student group. We're here to support you. And the fee is optional as well, so if you would like to not pay, thank you.
Next, can we have the candidate from WUSC?
Voting for the Student Refugee Fund frees up a lot of capital for one of our closest partners, which is UAlberta International. And they host really cool programs for the international student community, such as intercultural communications training, which a lot of our members have taken advantage of. It's really, really cool. They also put on a lot of cultural celebration fairs and events that just educate the community on the kinds of diaspora that we have present on campus. So yeah, voting for this fund allows us to be more independent and also helps international students. Thanks.
Next, we have the representative for the Student Legal Services.
We provide a lot, so I'm just going to run down the list. We provide guaranteed criminal and civil defense, including family matters, assistance with residency, representation at the Human Rights Tribunal, assistance with the Societies Act to prevent student group executives from facing liability, on-demand information from law students and guided by lawyers in Edmonton on legal topics pertinent to you, including immigration and issues surrounding that, among many others. Thank you.
Finally, can we have the candidates of the International Students Association, please?
ISAF provides a lot of benefits for international students. So one, the ICAD, 2, awards for international students, 3, year-round events such as ID, 4, regional group funding, 5, mental health and professional development workshops, and 6, operate funding for ISA dual dates operations. So vote for ISAF on March 9th and 10th. Thank you.
Considering the time in mind, we won't be able to go to our segment 3, which was candidate Q&A. So this brings us to the end of the forum today. Thank you everyone for being present here and communicating your ideas for the international students community. We wish you all the best and we look forward to working with you when you're elected. Just not to mention for everyone attending this forum online via Zoom or live session, don't forget to vote on March 9 and 10 in the SU elections. Thank you. Feel free to grab some snacks and coffee.